Welcome. Derek Rydall here, founder of the Law of Emergence and author of the #1 best-selling book, Emergence. And it's just such an honor and a pleasure to be with you today in this eternal moment. I really want to thank you for being here, because by transforming your consciousness of wealth, you're not just changing your life, you're literally changing the consciousness of humanity. And as I think you'll see by the time this training is done, gaining a consciousness of wealth, of awakened wealth, is about so much more than having more money. Although that's certainly part of it. It's about becoming free from the bondage to other people, places, jobs, bosses, clients, family, and the economy. I mean, just imagine that. It's about unlocking the secret to unlimited abundance of everything you could ever need. And that's not hyperbole. That's not exaggeration. That's a truth principle. That's what you were built for. You are a divine power plant capable of generating everything you need in ways that are beyond your imagination. And I just invite you, even right now, just imagine being able to generate everything you need, no matter where you've come from, no matter what you've been through or what circumstance you find yourself currently in. Imagine being able to earn what you deserve and make more in a month than maybe you've made in a year, knowing it blesses everyone you touch. Heck, more in a month than you've made in your entire lifetime. That's possible. I've done it, and I've helped clients to do it. Imagine having no more fear or judgment or resistance around creating all the wealth you want joyfully and easily, while adding massive value to everyone. Just imagine having more than enough to invest in your future, to build your dream business or dream life, so that you can give your time, your talent, and your treasure to the things that matter most. Just imagine not only making a living doing what you love, but living a life that reflects your deepest values and highest aspirations. This is the possibility with awakened wealth. And it's not only possible, it's already been given to you. That's the biggest secret here, is that this isn't something that you're going to add to you. This is something that you brought with you. And I'm going to show you how to unlock it. That your name, you've already got a sacred trust account with your name on it. You just maybe haven't known where it is. Maybe haven't known what the combination is to unlock it. And that's what awakened wealth is going to show you. That's what you're going to begin to really understand through this training. Now, I know you've heard a lot of programs probably and read a lot of books, and maybe there's a little bit of cynicism, or perhaps you just find yourself being on these trainings more like a means to an end. But what if today really was the day that changed everything for the better? I really, seriously, I invite you to get present to this moment. And imagine, what if this could be the call that turns it all around? See, if not now, when? You can only grow right now where you're planted. You can only have that great aha moment right now. And if you're willing, this moment is designed for you to have that breakthrough. You don't need to wait. In fact, whatever you're waiting for, you're actually waiting with, and you're weighing it down. So let's just take on the ultimate weight loss challenge today, WAIT, and lose all that weight. The thing is, if you don't enter into this moment expecting a miracle, then you are on some level expecting it not to work. Think about that. That doesn't mean that there isn't more to the journey, but right now in this training, you could have such a radical shift that your life is never the same. Because life doesn't happen to you, it happens through and as you. So that you alone have the power to set that intention right now, to have the breakthrough you've been yearning for, and to unleash that from within you. That's my intention for you. That's the intention I invite you to join with me. Will you? Will you set that intention to have that breakthrough on this training? To let this be the start of an amazing journey of awakened wealth and a life of having and being more than enough. I promise you it's possible. I promise you it's possible starting today. Now, why should you believe me? Why should you take my word for it, right? You may not even know who I am. Why should you listen to this spiritual ninja, this monk in work clothes? I have a very funny monk story I may or may not tell you, but I tried to be a monk. But for those of you that don't know me very well, I'm a guy who was lost. I was broke. I was broken. I was living in a one-room apartment after losing my fiance, the love of my life. I became addicted to drugs and alcohol. I was suicidal. And I nearly died twice until it finally, I got the message, I got the memo from the universe that something was awry. And it cracked me open enough to discover that the self that I've been trying to improve for so many years and make a success out of was a fictional character that didn't even exist. That it was an amalgam of peer pressure, parental fantasies, societal conditioning, and there was no way I could ever improve it. Now, I'm not going to go into all the reasons why that's so today. That's a little bit down the rabbit hole, but that's where I was. I was in a very deep, dark hole. And the more I tried to improve my life, the deeper in the hole I became. Anybody recognize that one? But what I did discover was that most of my efforts to improve my life, to be more, do more, have more, not only didn't work, but that literally it was creating the majority of the resistance to what was already naturally within me trying to emerge. That after my second brush with death, I finally saw this and something opened up in me, and I glimpsed that the real me already came, as I said, already had a trust account with my name on it, already came with everything that I needed to be all that I was created to be, like the acorn comes with everything it needs to become an oak tree, or any seed for that matter. All of nature, look at how abundant nature is. And all of nature comes fully equipped, fully funded, fully franchised, and so did you. Locked within me, I discovered, was this storehouse of wealth, of such abundance, such power, such possibility, such wisdom, and that it just needed me to get back in touch with it, to let go of so many of the habits that I've been taught about how to make it in the world, how to make stuff happen, and instead how to make what was already happening within me welcome. And it was so profound, as I said, it caused me to pull out of society and become a monk, or at least try to become a monk. And, it didn't work. After a few days of fasting and retreating, I got so hungry and freaked out that I broke into the monk's kitchen and stole food from them in the middle of the night, and like some feral creature scurrying out of the forest, and went back to my little monastic cell and had my first out-of-body experience, and got so sick and was tormented by this presence that I think was the monks scaring me away from the monastery. It wasn't my role to be a monk in this lifetime, I guess. But as I began to really unpack this, I discovered that there was a principle that had largely gone unnoticed and misunderstood through most personal growth trainings. And I began to apply it, and specifically apply it in the area of success and wealth. And once I understood how it operated and a step-by-step way to practice it and express it, I went from making $50 a day to $50,000 an hour. I went from living in that one-room apartment, eating 19 cents macaroni and cheese, to $1 million homes. I went from barely making it with my talents to traveling the world, writing, teaching, speaking. I went from being alone and suicidal to being married to the love of my life, and having a beautiful family, and building a 7-figure business that has transformed and touched hundreds of thousands of people. But even more than all that, and I'm sharing all those things, again, not in any way to boast, not in any way to, impress you, but to impress upon you the power of this principle. And the most important thing I got was that I developed a deeper relationship to the source of all of this, which is within me, which is within you, that allowed me to begin to bring forth pretty much whatever I needed, oftentimes whenever I needed, and even more especially exciting, even in conditions when everything seemed to be against it. Even in the midst of recessions, I would grow my wealth in abundance. So I began to learn how to expand in the face of all of these limited conditions, which is part of the awakened wealth, one of the awakened wealth principles. One of the hypnotic wealth spells is that we must adapt to conditions. It's the worst thing in the world you could do. Instead, we must learn to expand in the face of contraction. That's the awakened wealth principle. So I went through that. I went through recessions and practiced this and discovered it worked in recessions. What about business loss or business failures? Been there, done that. And I discovered how to use these principles to let those failures slingshot me into even deeper and higher opportunities. And what about those seemingly impossible, impassable obstacles that we all face? That's nothing. You see, this infinite source of unlimited power and potential and abundance within you is always, always greater than the obstacle you face. And when you learn how to, instead of worrying about the obstacle you're facing, you tell those obstacles to start worrying about what they're facing. And that's you and your connection with this infinite abundance within you. And I began to understand some very, very specific principles, what I call the great reversal, which is that truly everything is within you. And we're going to get more into that because you've probably heard that principle. But it's also probably been a source of great frustration because you haven't known how to practically apply it. Now, one of the other things, and this is huge, I know for a lot of you heart-centered, spiritually minded individuals, which I was and am, all of my baggage about wealth and success, all the fear of becoming less spiritual or a bad person or hurting others or taking away from others if I got wealthy and successful, all of that began to dissolve and heal. And what I discovered was that through this process, the more successful I became, the more successful those around me became. The more wealth I generated, the more abundance there was for everyone. Not only did my wealth and success not take anything from anyone, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but it added incredible value to their lives. And I realized that by playing small, I didn't leave more left over for others. It actually left less for others. Did you hear that? Playing small did not leave more for others. It left less. When you live under the false hypnotic wealth spell that there's a zero-sum game, that it's a limited pie, and you play by that, you create a reality where there's less to go around. When you play by the realization that it's an infinite sum game, then the more you create and generate from this place, the bigger and bigger the pie gets. I really want you to let that sink in because this has been a big wound for so many heart-centered, spiritually minded people. You turn transactional relationships into transformational ones. Every time somebody has a chance to do business with you or to exchange abundance with you, and you provide a service or value in exchange for that, you give them a chance to expand and be bigger channels of wealth and abundance. I'm telling you what I know. And so you get excited about giving people opportunities to give you money. You get excited about giving people opportunities to do business with you. You get excited about you getting an opportunity to give other people money and do business with them because you recognize that it's just expanding the flow of wealth and abundance for everyone. So I don't want to get too far off on this. I could definitely go off on this one, but it's just so powerful. I hope you're feeling my passion and enthusiasm, and you can feel the resonant tone. Lean on this vibration of authority and knowing if you feel doubt coming up. Because this vibration that you might be resonating with right now, it's the truth. And as you just lean into that, it can lift you. So what I discovered is that not asking for what I really wanted or charging what I was really worth, it didn't make me more spiritual. It just made me more broke and frustrated and actually less capable with less capacity to give my gifts. And it shortchanged so many people that I could have helped even more if I wasn't so busy beating myself up and struggling to make ends meet. This is one of those great hypnotic wealth spells that I awoke from to discover a world of such abundant possibilities. That there is no shortage anywhere on this planet or in this universe, I'm telling you. So over and over, I began to prove these principles for myself, then for my clients, in what I now call this awakened wealth model. And as I've watched so many heart-centered, spiritually minded people struggle in this area, including the tens of thousands I connect with every year, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to bring their gifts to the world, struggling with the guilt and the shame around having enough or having too much, and all the shadow beliefs about wealth and success and worthiness, I realized that this must be healed, and it must be healed now. Don't you agree? Aren't you tired of that old game? Aren't you tired of not having enough? Tired of feeling guilty about wanting more? Afraid of asking for what you really want and charging what you're really worth and keeping more of what you have? Aren't you done with that game? It's not a very fun game. And it's not based on truth at all. It's time for conscious beings to rise up and take their place on the planet as wealthy, conscious, awakened wealth warriors. Because it's hard to be a light in the world if you are having a hard time paying your light bill, right? As one master teacher said, I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. He didn't say, I've come that you may, get by, right? No. It's time that heart-centered people with important gifts like yours finally have the inner and outer resources and are in positions of power and authority and success to bring these gifts of higher awareness, beauty, and truth to the world, wherever it is, as a parent, as a teacher, as an artist, as an author, as a speaker, as a healer, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as an executive, to bring that light of conscious, awakened wealth into every area of your life. It's not just me, right? I feel like saying, can I get an amen? We're having a revival up in here. That's what I'm feeling like. This is an awakened wealth revival. Enough playing small, enough of this false idea, this hypnotic wealth spell that money and spirituality are mutually exclusive, that you have to take some vow of poverty to be enlightened. There's nothing enlightened about being broke, folks. Mother Teresa wasn't broke. She could walk into any company in the world and get a check for a lot of money, and she did it over and over. In fact, she would go in there, they'd write her a check, they'd come out, she'd look at the check, she'd go, thank you, and she'd hand it back and go back into prayer, and they'd be like, what's this little old lady doing? And they'd go back and come back with a bigger check. Seriously. So you are an instrument of infinite wealth and abundance, harmonizing prosperity that takes nothing from anyone and magnifies the good for everyone. As if everybody tuned into a radio station and turned their radio up to full blast, if you had 1,000 people do that, by the time you got to 500 and 600, would there be less of that broadcast? Would there be less music? No. In fact, it would create a symphony of sound that would expand and reverberate, right? There would never, ever be less, even if all 1,000, if all million, if 7 billion people turned their radio to the same broadcast and turned it full up. Why? Because spiritually, this is a spiritual principle. The broadcast is not a quantity, it's a quality, and its nature is infinite. And we can understand that in the realm of broadcasting, but the same is truth about that beat of abundance broadcasting, that symphony of success broadcasting from your soul. And today is the beginning of you tuning into that broadcast and living your destiny. Are you with me? Now, here's the thing. Wherever you are right now, whatever you've struggled through, it's not your fault. You've been infected by these mind viruses of lack and limitation, hypnotized by these hypnotic wealth spells, traumatized by spiritual wounds around wealth and abundance, a legacy of shame, guilt, fear, ignorance around the true nature and purpose and process of wealth creation. It's not your fault. So starting today, it's time to let yourself off the hook, no matter where you are, where you've been, or what seeming mistakes you've made, okay? To forgive yourself, to love yourself and know you've done the very best with what you had, with what you've been taught. Today, the blame and the guilt and the shame and the beating yourself up ends. Will you make that commitment with me? Because you're never going to beat yourself up into success. You're never going to beat yourself up into abundance. You are a powerful, beautiful, brilliant expression of divine light and abundance. And today, we start treating ourselves and acting like that is true. Can we get an agreement on that? Because where 2 or 3 come together in agreement, there's a morphic field being created here. No matter when you're listening to this, we're creating a new field. And it's tearing up the old agreements. and creating a powerful new agreement in consciousness here. Tearing up those old agreements of lack and unworthiness and creating a healing vortex now. Lean into it. Feel it. It's healing you even now, I promise. Feel the emotion welling up. Feel the old stuff surfacing and being released. Feel the inner excitement and commitment. So today we're going to talk about a few of the awakened wealth principles, as if we've already not been doing that. And we're going to bust some of these hypnotic wealth spells some more, which, like I said, I feel like you're already beginning to rub the sleep from your eyes and wake up to who you really are. And then I'm going to share a very powerful framework for beginning to really activate this inner power plant, this inner wealth creating machine, and turn on that generator so that you never have to worry about money or having your needs met again. How does that sound? So also, why is this time that we're in right now, why is it more important than ever to get this stuff right? Why is it more important than ever to master this awakened wealth principle? Without getting too political, there's a drastic shift happening on the planet that's changing our relationship to power, to outer structures. That's why so many of them have failed us and will continue to fail as this next stage of evolution emerges. It's part of what I call the big betrayal, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's another very, very key awakened wealth principle, where the universe is basically set up to fail you when you make something outside of you your source, which we've done like never before. So all of those structures are starting to fail us. And there's no way to realize our true destiny as long as we're asleep to this false belief that someone or something outside of us is our source of safety, security, or supply. It must fail us, or we'll remain asleep and disempowered, and we won't be able to give our gifts and live our true destiny. So it's happening more and more on the planet. It's happening in our individual lives. I'm sure you feel it. I'm hearing it more and more from people. Things just aren't working like they used to. Things are falling apart, feeling more stuck, more stagnant. So if you want to benefit, but what's also happening is that the planet's speeding up its vibration. There's more opportunity, more abundance than ever before. But in order to gain access to it, you have to understand these principles to come into alignment with it, to not be swept away in the tidal wave of old structures being torn down and washed away. You need to be tapped into and congruent with this higher evolutionary model of wealth creation, the true nature of wealth, where it really comes from, and how to generate it without limits. So the key is understanding that all power, all supply is within you. It's not out there. And the core of the awakened wealth model is that it teaches you how to become anchored in this truth, how to live it practically, so that you're able to generate everything you need no matter what the outer circumstances are. Now, just imagine never being a victim again. No matter what the economy does, no matter what your boss does, no matter your job position or status, or your partner, or your family, or your country, even if you were stranded on a desert island, if you understand and apply this principle or these principles, this awakened wealth framework, you would be able to generate everything you need in abundance, So you think that might come in a little handy in your life in general? So why is this awakened wealth model different than many of the approaches out there? Because I'm sure you've heard about many. There's a couple reasons. First of all, because most success or wealth or manifestation teachings are still based on a false premise that your good is somewhere out there, in someone, something, some condition, and you need to either achieve it, earn it, or attract it. Even sincere spiritual and religious teachings in many cases still have you reaching out to some power outside of you, begging or beseeching it, whether that power is God or the universe or whatever. And they still see you as something separate from the thing you want, from the wealth and the abundance. So you end up starting from a place of lack and limitation, starting from a place of missing something, being broken or inadequate in some way. Then you try to use all of these techniques and tools to fill it up, attract it, manifest it, become worthy of it, etc. And all of that becomes largely a form of resistance that usually blocks what's trying to naturally emerge and actually exacerbates your problem. It magnifies your sense of lack and inadequacy, right? Now, even when it seems to work, You might manifest a bigger paycheck, but you often just end up broke at a higher income bracket. Why? Because the model, the premise that you were working with, the model of life was wrong. The truth is you're not separate from anything that you really want and need. You're not separate from your supply. You are the source of it. And we're going to get into more about why that is so. There's nothing out there to get, but there is this infinite storehouse, this infinite generator within you that's trying to express. And as I said, most of your attempts to get it or attract it are actually blocking it. Now, so we understand that this core model is that everything is within you. And so therefore, another very important principle to understand is that whatever is missing is therefore what you're not giving, what you're not generating. And I teach this in the Emergence work. This is the core of Emergence, the Emergence model. Whatever's missing is what you're not giving. But it's particularly important in the awakened wealth work because it's the core principle to realizing you are this divine power plant, that you have the capacity to generate everything that you need. And the core framework of that is the 7 gifts that give you everything, the mastery of which will start a flow of abundance in your life that nobody and nothing outside of you can stop. And it also teaches you that the real nature of wealth, part of this awakened wealth model, is that the real nature of wealth is not material. It's spiritual or energetic. And when you understand this and you can apply it, you can literally manifest your needs out of seemingly thin air. Now, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I just want to kind of lay out the overall concepts and map of this. So there's a few, core challenges, and we're going to go deeper into the 7 gifts and the big reversal and the big betrayal and all of that. So you're going to really understand these principles and how to apply them. But there's some big challenges that you face, and it's important to understand, how do you solve them? We've already covered several of them, but I'm imagining you're here for some obvious reasons. You want to have more wealth in your life. You want to have more money. You want to feel financially secure. You want to make a living doing what you love. You want to do it in a way that feels in harmony with your heart and your spirit, that doesn't have any of those icky byproducts of slimy sales and marketing tactics, right? You want to feel in power and in control of your life and your abundance, able to create whatever you need and even whatever your heart desires, and live a life that's not just getting by, but a life of more than enough, a life of true fulfillment and adventure and thriving success on every level. And I really want you to know and feel the truth to this. That is how you were designed. That is how life is designed. Look at nature. Does the trees have just enough leaves to get by? Are there just enough stars to get by? Are there just enough grains of sand to get by? No. Everywhere you look is abundance. And you are meant to show forth that same principle. Now, more specifically, you're probably also here because you've struggled with many attempts to solve your money issues, your debt issues, and they haven't worked out. Maybe they've even made things worse, as I said before. Maybe you don't know how to sell yourself without feeling like you're selling your soul. Maybe you don't know how to get a piece of the act without losing your piece in the act. Maybe you don't know how to ask for what you want or charge what you're worth and have enough paying clients to sustain your great vision. You might feel like it's an issue of confidence or self-worth and a need for more self-improvement. Well, you'll be glad to know that one of the wealth myths, the hypnotic wealth spells, is that is the belief that you need to believe in yourself in order to be wealthy or in order to ask for what you want. Absolutely false. You don't. Life is so willing and ready and eager to give you all that you need through you and as you and to you if you're willing to ask and willing to receive. And we might get into that a little bit more today. And, also, finally, maybe you're even on the verge of giving up. And this is your last desperate hope, right? The Hail Mary pass. I hope this guy, Derek, gives me something that I can really hang on to and take my life to the next level and get me out of this hole. And I hope so too. I mean, I believe so. In fact, I know so. I've done this work with thousands, tens of thousands of people, and I've seen the results. But whatever brought you here, what I can tell you, what I can assure you, is that understanding and mastering the principles of awakened wealth can and will put you back in the driver's seat. Or rather, I guess more truthfully, take you out of the driver's seat and put you in the co-pilot seat, because you're not really in control. And thinking you are is part of the problem. Any more than the surfer is in control of the wave. The master surfer learns how to ride the wave. There is a wave of inexhaustible wealth trying to flow through you and all around you. This will teach you how to ride it. And it will help you to end victimhood around money, where you no longer feel beholden to bank accounts and bosses and jobs and all that I've said, but you know that you alone are the source to create that. And as I said, you'll be able to charge what you're worth and earn what you really want and start creating a life of more than enough. Now, to jump down really to a couple of the most core principles, we've already started to talk about this. The first one is the great reversal. The second one is the big betrayal. And I've touched upon these, but it bears going a little deeper into this, because this is really the foundation of this paradigm shift. And the great reversal states that everything is within you, right? Which means that if you want more to come into your life, you have to find a way to let more life come out of you. If you want something different to come into your life, you have to find a way to let something different come out of you. That all of life is an inside-out flow, not an outside-in. There's nothing out there to draw to you. You must find a way to draw out of you everything that you want. And this is, one of the biggest shifts, that you have to draw everything out of you. And it may sound like something you've heard of or think you know, but if you honestly look at your life strategies, you'll find that in most cases, you're constantly trying to get something from someone or something, whether it's money, work, love, validation, approval, respect. It's so conditioned that you're constantly trying to get something. And that pattern of trying to get is blocking what is naturally able to unfold. And remember, the truth is that nothing and nobody out there has your good. Nobody out there completes you. As much as I loved Jerry Maguire, it's like the story of the guy who was, looking for something under a street lamp in a bush, and a neighbor comes along and he says, what are you looking for? And the guy's, well, I lost my key. And lost my keys. And so the neighbor starts helping him look, and they're looking. After quite a long time of looking, the neighbor finally says, I just got to ask, where did you lose them? And he says, oh, I lost them in the house, but the light is better out here. So we've been looking for the keys outside when all along they've been in our house, which is a esoteric or metaphysical term for our own consciousness. It's so ingrained in us that we really do need to make this radical paradigm shift in most cases and start to become really conscious of the places we're trying to get something outside of us, setting in motion a belief that we don't already have it, and then we keep creating the experience of not having or struggling for it over and over. Now, again, the implications of you really getting and beginning to live the truth that everything is within you are completely life-changing. But I'm going to go much further and give you this practical ways to use that. Now, the other big principle is the big betrayal. And as I already touched upon this basically says that the universe is set up to betray you whenever you make someone or something outside of you your source of safety, security, supply. And the more spiritually awake you become, the more you do your prayer and affirmations and all this work and activate these higher frequencies, the more intensely is this seeming betrayal. And the reason is this: as long as you believe someone or something outside of you is your source, you'll forever be a slave or a victim to them, codependently twisting yourself into a pretzel to try to get what you think you don't have, or keep what you think they're giving you, or at least not lose anymore by having them reject you and take away the source of good, which you think is them or the job or whatever. So most of our life is spent in this game of manipulation, resentment, feeling trapped, victimized, then projecting all that anger and sadness and fear onto the people and places and things we think are our source. Right? That's the game we've been playing. As it just progressively fails us, falls apart, or we have to work harder and harder and harder, get more and more burnt out, get more and more frustrated. It destroys relationships, it destroys careers, it destroys our health, destroys families. Does this sound familiar? Would you like to be done with that game? Your soul is crying out to set you free here. You're not here by accident. But here's the thing. When everything outside begins to fail, that's when you finally have nothing to lean on but the source within you, the spirit within you, whatever name you want to give it. That's when you finally are ready to come home again to yourself, to your real power, your real source, like the prodigal son who left his father's house, trying to make it on his own, spent everything, wasted everything, was broke and broken, and eventually had to return home again. This is a journey we all must take. Otherwise, we're like the branch that's cut off from the tree that eventually withers and dies. We've only got our limited supply. But when we're connected back to that tree, back to those roots, our supply is unlimited. And it doesn't burn us out anymore. And we don't make other people our source and put the burden on them and create all that pressure and conflict in our relationships. So, for many of you listening, you might feel kind of withered and burnt out and used up. And that's because this belief that your mere humanness or someone else was your source. And that just shrinks your infinite capacity into that one little opportunity, that one person or that one job. When you start to connect to the awakened wealth principles, there's not one way for your good to show up in your life. There's infinite ways, infinite possibility, infinite potentiality, infinite organizing power. Now, this particular, I just want to share a brief story about how I really came to this realization of the big betrayal. Basically, at a certain point after I'd pulled out of society and was living off my nest egg, my savings, I was, doing my inner work, prayer, meditation, all of that, and having a deep time and a real deep sense of peace and freedom. And my savings basically depleted until I had nothing. I was literally living on a prayer, right? And I had nothing left. And my landlord I was threatened with eviction, and I had bill collectors calling, and I'm like praying harder and harder. And I finally got to a point where I was like, I was broken again. I was broken again. And I'll be really honest. I was pissed off at God. I didn't understand why it had come to this again after all of my work that I'd done. So one night I finally laid the gauntlet down. I sat in my worn faux leather meditation chair in the middle of the room. And I basically said, God, whatever, if there's even is one after all, this stuff is either real and true or it's a bunch of BS. But one way or the other, I'm not getting up from this chair until I find out. They're going to have to pry my cold, lifeless, penniless hands from this chair. But I'm not getting up until I know the truth. And so I sat there and I prayed and I meditated, and daylight turned to dusk, and the crickets came out for their nightly chorus. And I wanted to half strangle little Jiminy Cricket there. And I wrestled with my demons and was pinned to the floor over and over again. And then at one point in the middle of the night, something cracked open. And this voice spoke to me, or something came through. And it said, you made your bank account, your savings account, your God, your source. And thou shalt have no other gods before me. I mean, that's one of the commandments. I half expected to turn around and see Moses standing there with the tablets, looking strangely like Charlton Heston. And all of a sudden, as that came, it began to explain. It said, when you make something outside of you your source, which you have done. I was racking up credit card debt, had maxed out my cards while I was keeping my savings account safe and secure. And then eventually I had to dip into that because I didn't want to use my savings account. Why? Because I had made that my source. And so it eventually dwindled to nothing. And it showed me that because when you do that, as I said before, you've got to start manipulating and controlling, and you twist yourself into a pretzel to get what you need and not lose what you have. And you're no longer able to be who you really are and to speak your truth and to share your gifts. You are completely disempowered, giving your power away to all your external sources. And the universe isn't able to use you very much anymore. It's not able to fulfill its purpose through you. And so it's got to fail you. It's got to cause this to break down so you can come back to source and realize you are the source. You are the answer. You have everything you need. And from that place now, you don't have to control or manipulate, lie, cheat, steal, beg, bargain, or plead. You can be yourself with power. And now the universe can use you. Now your purpose can be fulfilled. And as this came through, all of a sudden it was like this pressure valve opened up in me and all the stress drained out and a peace washed over me. And it was a peace that passes human understanding. It had nothing to do with my conditions. And I fell asleep. And for the next several days, I walked around without the usual anxiety. Even though nothing had changed externally, I knew all was well. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from my former acting agent, who said, I know that you don't do commercials anymore because you're too spiritual. I was pretty crazy. But they just called looking for you out of the blue. And so I went on this audition for a commercial. I booked it. For 2 days' work, I made more money than I had made for an entire year, or enough money to pay for a year's worth of expenses. And the thing was, it was outside of my vision board. It was outside of my imagination. I would have never imagined that outcome. I couldn't have even prayed for it. And that's the power of tapping back into this principle, is that there's opportunities and possibilities that are beyond what you can imagine right now. When you tap into this, they get activated. And it also was the beginning of living more from insight than eyesight. I didn't have any human visible means of support, but the minute I got hooked back up to the real source of support, that divine power plant turned on and started generating that energy that showed up as that opportunity. So the first and most important awakened wealth principle is that everything is within you, that whatever's missing is what you're not giving, therefore. And that's when you really have lived that, start to live that, you've started the great reversal. You're on the road to true wealth freedom. And the next most important principle is, now that you know everything was within you, you have to stop giving the power away to other people outside of you and begin to practice no longer making anyone or anything your source. So I just invite you just to take a brief moment, and look at an area where you've made someone or something outside of you your source. Maybe it's your job, your bank account, your spouse, your family. And it can be obviously your source of money or wealth, but because ultimately we're dealing with spiritual supply, a principle that applies to everything, you can also focus on a non-monetary area if you can't find a monetary one. But I'm imagining you're on this training because you really want to master the energy of money and wealth. So just take a moment and look at that relationship where you've made them your source. Maybe it's your spouse who brings home the paycheck and you think they're the source. The truth is that they're a channel of your abundance. They're not the source. So close your eyes and just look at that relationship and notice how you feel in it. Whether it's your job, your boss, your partner, your whatever. Just notice how it feels disempowering, how you feel maybe stressed to have to be a certain way or do things that aren't always authentic. Notice how you maybe have sometimes said yes when you really needed to say no. When you said no to yourself when you really needed to say yes. All of this so that you wouldn't get rejected or fired, or so that you wouldn't get divorced. The number one cause of divorce is money problems. You think this might be helpful in that? If you suddenly knew that you were the source of it? So just take a look at that relationship, that area, and notice how it really makes you feel. You can't heal what you don't feel. If you're willing to let yourself feel the pain, not with judgment, but to really feel the resentment, the guilt, the shame, your mind will automatically start looking for ways to change and to heal. Notice also what it's costing you in terms of self-worth, self-esteem, As I said, saying yes when you really mean no, saying no to yourself when you really want to say yes. You're paying a high price for this. See that, feel that. Maybe you even notice that despite all that you've done to control the situation, you still don't feel safe and secure. Maybe you still don't even have enough abundance to meet your needs or live the life of your dreams. So it's not even working. Maybe it's even totally backfired and you've lost your job or your mate. Notice where life seems to be betraying you in this area. And remember the principle that the universe is set up to betray you because you've made something or someone your source. It's not punishing you. It's trying to help you get back to a place of power. Just notice that. The ego will try to prevent you from really feeling and becoming aware of this because it knows if you really do, you will begin to change. And to the ego, real change is equivalent to death. So now as you're feeling all this, I want you to now become aware. And I want you to invite you to do a practice. As you're feeling all this and as you go through this, just take your hands as if you're hugging yourself and rubbing from your shoulders down to your hands on both sides, like you're just caressing your arms. And just do that gently throughout this process. It's a process called havening that starts to deactivate and help collapse the neural pathways, the charge around this pattern. And as you're doing that, you want to become to remember now the truth here, which is that no person or place or thing ever was your source. At best, they were a channel for your good. But to whatever extent any good shows up in your life, it has to come from your consciousness, even if it comes through someone else. It could never have come to you if it wasn't an activity in your consciousness. Now, I've helped, a lot of times it's women who are married and don't have a job to totally re-empower themselves in this area. And as a result, they've watched as their husbands get raises and bonuses and all kinds of new money flows in, and they secretly know that it's because their consciousness expanded. I know that for my own sake, because of my wife's consciousness early on in our relationship, I suddenly became available to more and more opportunities. I was very aware that it was her consciousness that expanded. And so because I was the channel in the family, it came through me. But it definitely was in part coming from her. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't show up as your own opportunities, but it's not limited to what you can do. Everyone and everything can become a channel for your good. Just feel into what that would feel like. What if there was not just this one channel, but infinite channels? And you don't have to worry about the channel. You just have to worry about keeping your channel open. So now as you feel your way back into this truth, feeling how good it would feel to know that you're the source of everything, that everybody and everything is your channel, and there's infinite potential channels. I want you to make an inner commitment to begin to release everyone and everything that you've made your source. Keep rubbing, caressing your arms. And I want you to now recall a time when you did feel empowered around money or wealth, when you felt like you had money or wealth. If you have a hard time finding one of those moments, then just remember a time when you did feel empowered, you did feel in possession of something, you felt like you had something, and it felt really, really good. The consciousness of having is the key here. As the ancient scripture says, to he who has, more shall be given. But to he who has not, even what he has will be taken away. So get in touch with that moment, that feeling of having. If you have a hard time even finding a memory, just visualize what it would be like to have all your needs met. Feel what it feels like to have, to be sourced. Take a deep breath, and as you exhale, let that feeling expand to fill your body. Feel it radiating through your whole body. And you can add into this, load into this visualization. Imagine yourself getting the call or the check or whatever it is you feel is missing right now. and see yourself getting it, feel how it feels, notice who you're being, notice how you would use it, spend it, invest it, circulate it, how you could live now, and feel how good that feels. Take a breath, and as you exhale, multiply this vision times 10. So now you see yourself getting a windfall. You win the lottery, your business explodes, your book becomes a bestseller, whatever. See the success, just jump there, be in it, feel it. And load all of that in now. Feeling sourced, feeling powerful, feeling abundant. Breathe and radiate this into every dimension of your body and into every aspect of your life. Feeling how now you're the source. You're radiating this feeling tone, this energy. And see yourself radiating that now to whoever you have made your source in your life. Family, friends, boss, job. Just see yourself radiating this energy, give it a color, and saturate everyone and everything in your life. The government, everything. And just feel how good it feels for you to be the source of unlimited energy. And understand that that energy is the very substance of the next stage of your own expression. Now, as you're feeling that, I want you to ask this question. If I really lived in this feeling and knew this was true about me, what would I do in this particular area or relationship? How would I act? What would I start doing or stop doing? What would I do more of or less of? And listen for guidance. And make a commitment that you will take some action that is congruent with that vision now. This is anchoring this vibrational frequency more into your field. Now, what I want you to understand is if you were even able to feel a glimpse of this, you've already begun to turn on that inner wealth generator. You've already proven that circumstances and people are not the source of those good feelings. And that good feeling is the very substance of wealth. And so I want to just take a moment now, take a breath, feel good about the work you're doing. And I want you to understand now why this is true, that this is the source of your wealth. That vibration is the wealth. And this is awakened wealth principle number 2. Money and things are not wealth. They are the evidence or the fruit or the symbol of wealth. Wealth or supply is invisible and spiritual and energetic. It's similar to love, peace, joy, creativity. It's spiritual. And when you use those qualities and express them, you don't have less of them, right? You always have more and more. The more you express, the more that you have. When you understand real nature of wealth and express from that place, the more and more wealth you have. So you're never spending it. You're investing, circulating, and radiating this wealth energy, and it in the form of dollars and whatever. But because you're coming from the place of knowing its true nature, it keeps growing and expanding. Now, an important analogy to understand the real nature of wealth is like a fruit tree. The fruit of the tree isn't the wealth of the tree. It's just the evidence of an invisible principle that transmutes the raw material of the soil into the blossoms and the sap and the fruit. That invisible principle and intelligence is the real wealth, the real supply. That's when a tree is bare, the farmer doesn't think it's broke or broken and cut it down. The farmer knows it's just as rich, ready to bring forth a new harvest over and over as long as the roots are kept healthy and rooted in the soil. Well, your conscious connection with Source in the soil of your own soul is your infinite, inexhaustible source of supply. As you dig your roots deeply into that and stay rooted in that, no matter what the outer conditions are, you can never be limited or hindered by anything or anyone outside. As your roots get deeper and stronger, it's like the tree whose roots are so deep and strong that the storm can come and blow away most of the tree and the tree will reproduce itself. A drought can come along and leave the land barren, but the tree's roots will tap that silent spring beneath the soil. A fire can even come and burn the tree up, But if its roots are deep enough and strong enough, it will regrow itself. Just think about that. That's awakened wealth. That's real wealth. That's real freedom. That's the path you're now on. So now we know that wealth is spiritual. And by the way, you know that old saying that that money is the root of all evil? That's not actually what the saying is. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. But now as we understand, money is just a symbol. What the saying is really saying is the love of the symbols, the outer symbols of wealth is the root of all evil. When you think dollars and stocks and bonds and businesses and people are the source, and you become attached to that, that's where you get all the evil actions that wealth can create in the world. It's not the dollars and the wealth, it's the love or the belief or the attachment that those symbols of wealth are the real source of wealth. But when you know that wealth is invisible and is in you, like the goose and the golden egg story, they cut the goose open to try to get all the golden eggs out, and there's nothing in there but a goose. Because the goose was the source of recreating and reproducing the gold. That's you. And when you know that, nobody can take that away from you. Nothing. No economy, no recession, no job or job loss, nothing. Just feel the power of that. So now that you know wealth is spiritual, that it's all within you, and that you start realizing that you no longer will give away that power to anybody else outside of you, now we come to the key framework of how do you start consciously generating. And you get to this, what I call the 7 gifts of the giver. And I'm going to have to go through these kind of briefly because obviously I could spend a long time, and I'm going to talk to you about how I'm going to help you really do a deep dive in this work and really support you. So hang on till the end of this training so I can support you in really getting a deep dive, 21-day awakened wealth process so you can really anchor and activate awakened wealth consciousness. But the 7 gifts of the giver are the practical ways you activate and turn on that inner power plant. Some of them may surprise you, but this comes after practicing and training with this for decades and tens of thousands of people and demonstrating it over and over again. So I'm going to go over them first, and I'll come back and talk about them a little bit more in depth. So the first one is giving out. And that includes giving out of your time, your service, your talents, your treasure, giving out. The second one is, by treasure, I mean like your money, your tithing, things like that. The second one is giving away. This is the things you don't need or use anymore. The third one is giving up. And that includes old habits, resentments, criticism, judgments, complaints. The next one is giving in. That's releasing all resistance, surrendering. Again, I'm going to go back and explain why these work. Then we have giving to yourself. Huge, huge paradigm shift. This is how you have to give to yourself whatever you've been trying to get. And this activates the law of circulation in a very powerful way, which I'm going to talk about. And then finally, we have giving thanks and forgiving. So that's the 7 gifts. Now, giving out is so often, with all of these gifts, it's about getting the energy moving in places where it's become stuck or stagnant. It's all about circulating the energy. And so for many of us, we want to be of service. We want to give of our time in the world, but we don't do it because we don't think we have the time. And we say, well, one day when I have everything else together, I'm going to give of service. And that's blocking energy that's trying to emerge now in your life. And when you start giving of the service, amazingly, you find you have more time in your life. The other one is our talents. We have, and again, I could say so much more about this, and I will later, but we have our talents, and we are waiting for the right condition to give out our talents. Or maybe we're a singer and, we're waiting for a great gig to give our talents, but we're not singing every day. Maybe we're writers and we want to give our writing talent, but we're waiting to be good enough or waiting to be perfect, or we're always rewriting the same piece and never putting it out there, And I say, if you're a singer, you sing, even if the only concert you can put on is for your cat. If you're a writer, you write and you put that material out there, even if nobody reads your blog. And the third one is, and again, that starts moving the energy. It's like when I wanted to sing, and I was a singer and I was practicing, but I wasn't really doing it. And I was at a party and somebody said, "What do you do?" And I just found myself blurting out, "I'm a singer." And they said, "Great, can you come sing for us at this thing?" And I was like, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into?" But I went and did it anyway. And it was like this terrible retirement home, smoky, people cursing each other, half delusional. And I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." So instead I started to show up as if it was my dream job. And I started to give my talent full out. Slowly but surely, that room evolved. All the people that smoked left or stopped smoking. People that were arguing stopped arguing. It started to fill up with people that were interested, and it became the very powerful experience for me. The third piece for the giving out is your treasure or your money. And we often say, "Well, yeah, I want to be philanthropic or tithe to my church or charity, but I don't have enough money." It doesn't work that way. You have to start the flow. Find a way to give of your money, even if it's just $1, even if it's just a dime. Look for opportunities to give, and you start the flow. You send the message, "I have." Remember, I have, I am, I can, and the universal law will magnify that state of consciousness and give you more circumstances that reflect I have, I am, I can. Then we get to giving away things you don't need or use anymore. This is so powerful. Many of the things we're holding on to, it's all stuck energy. That stack of magazines that you don't really need and are never going to read, but you can't let go of it because you're ashamed or guilty of having bought it in the first place. That closet full of knickknacks that have all these sentimental value, it's really stuck energy. And as you start to move that out of your life, you're going to uncover all the unconscious energy there. You're going to start to move that energy, open up the flow, and really new things are going to now have a space to come into. When your life is filled up, there's no space for the new to flow. So all those areas that are not really being used, they have to move. Instead of use it or lose it, it's use it or move it. Or use it or loose it, because you have to let it go, loose it and let it go. And it can be a challenging, but it can be one of the most powerful things. So many people started cleaning out their houses and garages and closets and drawers when they started to learn this, and the transformations were powerful. The next one is giving up. So this is old habits, resentments, criticisms. Something more is always trying to emerge and be born through you. A larger life, a larger character, larger opportunities, but we can't operate at the higher level if we're holding on to things that are weighing us down vibrationally. So these habits of mind and emotion are preventing you from growing and expanding. They're creating resistance to what's trying to emerge, like trying to hold on to the acorn shell and be an oak tree at the same time. Impossible and painful. So you begin to practice maybe one a day or one a week, letting go of a habit, a resentment, a judgment, a criticism. And you start to notice in place of that is new vitality, new inspiration, new insight, new opportunity. It's very, very powerful. Now, you could focus on one of these or all of these, and they become a way of life. But notice which one of these resonates the most with you as we're going through this. Then we get to giving in. This is releasing resistance. See, there's always something trying to emerge, but we're often trying to hold on to our old ways of being that have been devised to protect us and keep us safe. Like the acorn trying to hold on to its protective acorn shell. Or we're trying to force something. And all of this is an indication that there is something real trying to emerge through us, the next stage of our life and our abundance and our good. But we are in a state of control. We think we're controlling it. Remember how I said before, you move out of being the pilot to the co-pilot. You move out of being the manager of the universe to an employee of the universe. So in this stage, it's about noticing those places of resistance and surrendering, not acquiescing. You're not resigning to the problem. You're always surrendering to the larger life that is emerging. When the acorn surrenders its protective shell, it's not going, oh, my shell's broken, my life's falling apart. No, it's surrendering to the oak tree. Then we get to the next gift, and that is giving to yourself. So important. You cannot give what you don't have. So you must first give it to yourself. First step of the law of circulation. You must look to everything you've been trying to get, love, peace, respect, validation, approval, and ask, what would it look like to give this to myself? Or if I loved myself or validated or approved of myself, how would I show up today? How would I show up at this job? How would I show up in this relationship? If you ask that question and process that, you'll start to activate this power plant within you that's generating those qualities all the time. It never was the other person. And it's the first step in the law of circulation, which says you cannot give what you don't have. So you have to first have it. You have to give it to yourself. Fill yourself up. And then you cannot keep what you don't give. So now you got to give it away. You got to share it, circulate it. And finally, you cannot sustain what you don't receive. So now you have to breathe and receive it back again. It's a complete breath cycle. You breathe in, you breathe out, and you breathe in again. You cannot live without that full cycle. You cannot be truly wealthy and abundant without this full cycle. You breathe in, you fill yourself up. You breathe out, you give out that energy, that oxygen, and then you breathe it back in again. And so for many of us, we don't breathe in, we just try to breathe out and give, and we burn out. Or we breathe in and we don't breathe out because we're afraid of not having enough, and we implode. Or we breathe in, we breathe out, but we don't breathe back in again. We don't receive the love that life is trying to give us. Somebody compliments us, we go, oh, this old ratty dress, oh, this hair, I barely even spent any time on it. Or they try to buy us a meal. No, you don't have to do that for me. And we don't let the circulation complete the circuit. You starting to get this? You starting to sense how applicable this is? All these ways that you might be stopping, blocking, or preventing the flow. When this flow gets going, let me tell you something. You will be unstoppable. Then we get to giving thanks. What you appreciate appreciates. And we know that gratitude is the foundation of abundance. It's the signal that we already have. And remember, to he who has, more shall be given. We have to, the more we're in a state of gratitude, the more the universe gives us experiences to be grateful for. And the cycle of gratitude is as follows. We start off with no reason to be grateful. Then we find something to be grateful for. Then we become grateful for everything. And then we come back to being grateful, but for no reason. We're a state of gratitude. So that's the power of this state. It's a foundational vibration that says, I already have, the gift has already been given. I'm not waiting for appearances to show up. I'm going to live in the truth of my being, which is gratitude. And then life starts to shape itself around that vibration. Then finally, we get to forgiveness. Literally, listen, look at the word. You are for giving. Not for taking, for giving. And whenever there's debt, there's a story of unforgiveness somewhere. So as you really understand this principle and this particular gift, think about it. When you say you owe me or I owe you, you think somebody owes you or you owe somebody. You know, whether it's love, forgiveness, validation, whatever. They did you wrong or you did them wrong. That is a state of debt. Mental, emotional debt, energetic debt, and it will create debt in your life. And so healing this begins to free up that block. It's a very, very powerful process. As people have done this, it's been one of the most powerful ways that they started to get the wealth flowing in their life again. So I invite you just to identify one of these that you could begin to practice, and perhaps practice over the next 21 days. And there's been so many success stories, you know, people that have been on the verge of bankruptcy, going to lose their home, their business, and then they started to do this work, and within 40 days, they had more business than they could handle. They ended up launching a whole new business that was their dream business. Their banker looked at their profit and loss statement, had no idea how they did it. One client started to do this work and began to make more money in a month than they had made in previous years. One started doing this, and they did what's called the money miracle goal. I'll tell you more about this in a moment. And they got suddenly a surprise inheritance for that amount within the first 40 days. Another one, it's the 40-day money miracle goal. Another one did the same thing. And her husband got a surprise bonus for the exact amount of her money miracle goal. These kind of things happen over and over again. And there's so many examples of people getting new clients, getting out of debt in 40 days, selling a house they couldn't move off the market, suddenly be able to buy a house of their dreams, all kinds of things. People suddenly getting money paid back that had been owed to them for years. Suddenly the person calls or mails them a check. I mean, it's over and over. Why? Because all symptoms of debt and lack are energetic blockages where the circulation isn't happening for all the reasons we've been talking about. You're making somebody outside of you your source, block. You are thinking wealth is dollar bills, block. You're not generating that wealth energy through any one of those 7 gifts, or in some area really blocking it, block. So this shows up in your life as debt, lack, limitation, burnout. And when you start to really get all these cranking, that power plant gets up to full capacity and life becomes quite an exciting adventure. Now, there's so much more I could share with you. We've already gone, way past what I intended, and I don't want to, obviously we can't sit here and do this for days, but I do want to invite you, if you want to go deeper in this and you want to master the Awakened Wealth system and really begin to live in this new paradigm and become aligned with this accelerated energy on the planet right now and unleash all those blockages to your wealth creation so that you can start to make more money, make more, keep more, have more, and never worry about money again, where you can really master these 7 gifts and activate an almost godlike ability to manifest whatever you need. Is that something you want? Then I want to invite you to click on that button for the special offer. And I want to tell you, this really is a special offer because I'm going to give you access to this entire program that has taken me a couple decades to develop, hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own training and investment to really understand, not to mention thousands of hours of meditation and banging my head against the wall and all the things you heard about my crazy stories. And if you were to buy this on my site, it would cost you many times more if you were to buy it retail. So I want to give you a chance to come work in this program, be supported by me, be supported energetically. Every one of these audios, it's hours and hours of step-by-step training, have all been encoded with high frequency encoding so that it will start to work on you even before you work on yourself. And I just want to, click on that special offer button and notice what's involved in this program. It's a complete step-by-step mastery program for really turning on that power plant, that wealth creating power plant, and becoming an awakened wealth warrior in your own right, where you're going to walk through step-by-step mastering those 7 gifts and activating them in your life. You're going to have an even deeper mastery and understanding of the great reversal and the big betrayal and get free of all the places where you've given your power away and start reclaiming that and standing in that and being able to ask for what you want and charge what you're worth and make more than perhaps you ever have. I'm telling you what I know. This is not hyperbole. This is not hype. This is proven over and over again. And then you're going to understand the 5 great money myths and the awakened wealth truths, such as we are separate from our good and must get it, achieve it, or attract it. Money and things are wealth. You have to believe it to receive it. You have to adapt to circumstance. Money or wealth is not spiritual. We're going to really bust those myths completely and snap you out of those hypnotic spells. It's going to be really a paradigm shift. And you're going to really understand the real cause of debt and how to get out of it once and for all. Then we're going to dive deep into the money mastery matrix and the money map, where you're going to define your monthly money goal, your miracle money goal, which I was talking about, your money freedom goal. Your miracle money goal is how much you decide to earn over the next 40 days to get you out of debt, to get your life back on track. The money freedom goal is what it's going to take to free you of having to work for a living. And the money mastery goal is what it's going to take for you to truly live the life of your dreams. This isn't theory, folks. We're going to roll up our sleeves and change your life for real in a step-by-step, simple program and blueprint that is also a lot of fun. And as I said before, the impact of awakening this consciousness and generating and turning on this law of circulation, it doesn't just affect your dollars and your money. Because life is holographic, as you master this one area, it's going to open up and unlock potential in every other area of your life. I've seen people start to get in better physical shape as a result, lose weight, heal relationships all over the place, because again, it's all about a power play. And when that gets healed, the relationships get healed. So many things, launch businesses that they haven't been able to launch, all kinds of stuff, because that energy starts flowing. You're going to also get to be in the Awaken Wealth Mastermind. You're going to be able to be part of the Quantum Healing Program, where I'm going to do active healing work for you every day for the next 30 days. You're going to get additional bonus programs and other kinds of support. Just take a look on this page. It's thousands of dollars of real programs, no filler. It's absolutely specific programs and support systems that have been structured to keep you on track, to get real results, and to get you to the other side of living a life of true abundance. And normally this program is, costs a couple $1,000s retail, but you're going to get it at a tiny fraction of that. And it's a special offer that you're not going to find likely anywhere else. So I really invite you to take advantage of this. And of course, there's a guarantee. You have a chance to go over it, to get involved in it, to experience the shifts. And if it doesn't totally knock your socks off, you get a refund. I'm that sure about it. I've seen it work over and over again. And you can also see down here what each module includes. Class 1, the core principles of awakened wealth. Class 2, the real nature of wealth. Just click on special offer if you haven't already, and it might be in your email or on the web page you're listening this to, and scroll down and see what's really in here. Class 3, self-worth versus net worth, a wealth and worth building workshop. Class 4, expansion versus adaptation, the key to wealth without limits. That is life-changing. Class 5, life is abundance. You're going to learn what are your wealth shadows and values conflicts around money and success. Completely changed my life when I healed this values conflict I had around spirituality and wealth and family and wealth and success and creativity. And it completely opened up all this energy that I've been blocking. You're going to get all of that and so much more. So just please take a look at this. And, there's some questions on here that you'll see, some frequently asked questions. People ask, what if I've been struggling for years and I'm still in debt? Will this work for me? And first of all, if this is you, I really am sorry you've been struggling. I understand it. I've been there. But the good news is this isn't personal. It's principle. The principle doesn't know how long you've been struggling. It's like if you plant a seed that's been in your pocket for years and you create the right conditions, the law of emergence in the soil can't say, I'm sorry, but I can't grow you because you've been in your pocket for years, you missed your window, and besides, you come from a long line of seeds that never really amounted to much. No, this is principle. When you apply it, it doesn't matter where you are or where you've been, who you are, what your karma is. None of that determines your destiny. Principle and application of principle does. I walk you through how to do that. Another question is, there's so many get-rich-quick schemes. How do I know this isn't just another one of them? Well, first of all, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. In fact, it's not about getting rich at all, because you can't get what you already have. This is about understanding your true relationship to wealth and mastering the principles to access and express the infinite abundance already in you. And it can happen very quick. But even if it takes a little bit longer, isn't it worth it to finally master the energy of money and abundance? And then what's different about this program versus all the other ones on creating wealth and abundance? And I hope I've articulated what's different, because this is based on the emergence model, on the truth, the perennial truth that everything is already within you. Most of those other models are still based on an outside-in model. Even the law of attraction, it's still about attracting something you don't have, which creates and sets you up to be separate from it and often causes you to fail. And like I said, even when you manage to manifest a bigger check, you end up finding yourself broke at a higher income bracket because all you've done is manipulated conditions, but you are fundamentally the same. This transforms you to make you an instrument and a channel bigger and bigger to carry more of this energy and express more of this abundance without limits and without resistance. And you might be thinking, well, I don't like money or talking about money, or I'm afraid of making a living or asking for what I want. Well, this is going to totally shatter all of those fears and doubts and open you up to becoming really masterful around this. And finally, you might be thinking, well, I can't afford this program. And I'm sure the irony doesn't escape you, but just in case, if you can't afford the very small investment in yourself in order to create a life of true wealth, then you really can't afford not to. Honestly, if you have a problem at this level, how long do you want to live with that? How long do you want to live feeling stuck, feeling like you can't afford it? I can tell you again from personal experience, the I can't afford it is just a conditioned pattern, and it becomes your experience. But when you're willing, if you're feeling resonance and you're feeling the yes, and you say yes to your yes, and you step out on that invisible bridge like in Indiana Jones, crossing that invisible bridge, the bridge will appear beneath your feet. If you step out, say yes, and then get the training and support that I'm going to give you to anchor and embody that new level, you will take yourself to a new level permanently. I've done it over and over in my life. It's how I've grown my life in such a way that I no longer am concerned with the economy. I don't care what the economy is doing. I don't care what people say the business is doing. All I care about is, am I connected and am I practicing this process? And as I do, my wealth, abundance, and opportunity keeps growing. That's what I want to make you a master at. And if you want to be masterful of that too, even if it's just earning an extra few hundred a month or an extra few thousand a month or an extra few thousand an hour, all of that's possible. So take a look at this page and all of the steps and elements of it, whatever you need. And I hope you'll choose to come play with me and be part of this awakened wealth community of awakened wealth warriors that are breaking these old agreements of lack and limitation and fear and guilt and shame around wealth and money, and are becoming instruments of real harmonizing prosperity, turning transactional relationships into transformational ones, and able to give their gifts in the world in a bigger and bigger way. I want you to be one of those people. I hope you'll come play with me. And until next time, just live authentically, love unconditionally, and follow your destiny. Take care.